The practice of real estate brokers is governed by the law of agency, which gives a broker or salesperson the right to act for a principal in trying to buy or sell a property. And it's also important to note that the rights and obligations of the agent and the principal are protected by law. In general, three types of agents can be created: a universal agent, a general agent, and a special agent. So, a universal agent has the power to act for the principal in all matters. So, this is the broadest type of agent. And then a general agent would be one who's limited to just a specific business or employment relationship with that principal. And then a special agent is focused on just a specific event or transaction. So you can see how the special agent has the most narrow powers, and then that would be most often what we would think of when we think of a residential real estate broker. So they just have the power to act for a specific transaction. And then the next kind of level up is the general agent, who has more power than the special agent. And so that would be an example, would be a property manager. And then a universal agent has authority in all matters. And so that would be someone who can act with regard to medical documents or personal agreement or taxes, living arrangements, even insurance. Now, there are certain fiduciary responsibilities of agents to their principals, and those include confidentiality, which is not betraying confidential information, obedience, following the instructions of the principal, accounting, keeping the principal informed about the financial aspects of their assignment, loyalty, never subordinating the best interest of the principal, or in other words, acting always in the best interest of the principal. Disclosure, being completely open and honest. Skill and care, representing the principal as that agent would represent themselves. And so we can use that mnemonic COLDS to remember those fiduciary responsibilities. And the principal has duties to be open, honest, and fair. The listing contract represents a contract for services between the broker, who's acting as an agent, and the seller, who is the principal. The listing contract creates a special agent contract. Remember those three types of agency, and so this is the most narrow. The special agent contract between the principal and the real estate agent. So this contract is typically between the seller and the broker, but there's a so-called buyer's agent that's used more and more. Now, dual agency issues may arise when the agent represents both the buyer and the seller. Dual agencies arise frequently in today's market due to the fact that salespeople typically work closely with buyers. And there are a lot of challenges that arise from dual agency and trying to solve the dual agency problem. So, the dual agency problem is that an agent is serving two principals, and trying to make sure they're acting in the best interest of both. So here are some potential solutions for the dual agency problem. And so those potential solutions result in different types of brokerage relationships. And so you can see those different potential types of relationships here. So of the 5 types, 2 include a dual agency relationship, and then there's kind of to the far left and far right, we have the traditional brokerage relationship where the broker is representing the seller. And then to the far, that's on the far left, on the far right, we have a transactional brokerage where the broker isn't representing either party. Dual agency is some kind of way we're representing both. And that buyer brokerage is when both parties are represented by a broker. So that's where that buyer's agent comes in, which is pretty popular these days. So brokerage companies sometimes have to represent both the seller and the buyer on both sides of the transaction. And so those sometimes would be unintended instances of dual agency. And so we've got some examples here. So even though the listing contract binds the broker to represent the seller in a typical transaction, buyers often operate under the false assumption that the broker also works for them and has their best interests in mind. So this misconception is further perpetuated by some agents who don't even clarify their role with the buyers. But now, many states like Alabama require agents to disclose to the buyers the fact that they do not represent them. So here we've just got a visual summary of the responsibilities of a broker to the buyer and or the seller across those different brokerage relationships. So thinking back to those fiduciary responsibilities, regardless of the relationship, we have the responsibility of honesty and fairness, as well as accounting and disclosure. But with the fiduciary responsibilities of skill, care, and diligence, if there's no relationship, then there's no responsibility there. And the same with timely presentation of offers. Now, with confidentiality, again, if there's no relationship, there's no responsibility. And if it's just a transaction relationship, then that responsibility is limited. And then finally, loyalty, obedience, and full disclosure are only duties, fiduciary duties in a single agency relationship. So lastly, here's just a consolidated comparison of broker responsibilities in a single agent relationship versus a transaction broker relationship.